Hey everybody, I hope that you've all had a great week this week. We're going to start with something a little bit more painful. News recently came out that one of our young officers from Palm Beach County was shot in the face by what seems to be an MS-13 gang member. Just want to say, number one, to this officer's family, you're in our prayers. We're praying for you. We're praying for your recovery. We're praying for all of your fellow officers. And this coincides with National Police Week. A lot of our officers up here in Washington, D.C., and I think this really speaks to the bigger dangers that they face, our officers face on our behalf every single day, every single week. I had the opportunity to speak earlier in the week for a memorial for fallen officers. And the gist of my comments were this, that those officers that have fallen, they fell for each and every one of us. Whether they were canine handlers or bomb technicians or snipers, or they were on patrol, or whether they were undercover, or whatever it is that they did as law enforcement officers, when they fell serving on behalf of each and every one of us in our community, just trying to make sure that we were safe from the dangers that we were calling them to defend us from. And so, you know, a debt of gratitude to each and every one of those people that put on a uniform, put a pistol on their hip, don body armor every single day, knowing that they may very well have to use those tools to defend themselves and to defend our community. We pray for them. We pray for their safety every day, and we specifically pray for this officer. This news also coincides with something that affects all of us in the community. News that individuals that have crossed our border illegally into the United States seeking asylum will be allowed to await their adjudication in places like Palm Beach and Broward County, somewhere to the tune of 500 to 1,000 individuals a month coming in. Now this really speaks to the fact, in my opinion, that we need to secure our southern border. I have voted numerous times to fund and put in place more boots on the ground, more physical security, a wall, other things to make sure that individuals cannot cross our border illegally, physical security that gets put in place so that this doesn't happen, so that, you know, this small amount, 500 to 1,000 people, it's a lot for our community, but it's small compared to the tens of thousands of individuals that are crossing our border illegally each and every month. It needs to come to an end. I am going to continue to work to make sure that illegal border crossing comes to an end. What we need to make sure is that the other representatives in our area who are not voting, who are not working to secure our southern border, to make sure that individuals aren't crossing illegally, who are being obstructionists to this, who don't see this as a problem, all of those other representatives in South Florida who don't see illegal immigration as an issue, who want to see open borders in our country, that they are spoken to about this, and it's made aware to them why they need to get on the right page, why they need to get on the page of defending America, of protecting our borders, of protecting our nation, of recognizing that, yes, you know, we should have people immigrate into our country, but it needs to be through legal means. Nobody, and I mean not one person, it's not acceptable for one person to cross into our country illegally, regardless of the situation it is that they come in from. We have the right to demand that people enter illegally. And this is unfortunately what happens when people enter our country illegally. Certainly going to be in conversation with the governor, with the administration, with many others as this situation plays itself out further. To talk about a few other things. You know, this week, myself, along with the rest of the members of the Florida delegation specifically, we received a classified briefing about election security in Florida. And I'm sorry, I am limited. I'll say I'm sorry right up front. I'm limited as to what I can say right now because this was a classified briefing. The nature of the briefing is that I cannot speak about the things that were said in there, aside from those things that are already out there in the media, that are already open source. I can speak about those things, not things that were presented by the FBI and Homeland Security, other parts of the Department of Justice as classified information. So my apologies for that. When it becomes open source, I will talk about that open source information with you. There is no doubt that this briefing, it's further confirmation that our national security, it's under constant cyber attack. This is something that we look at a lot here in Washington. Specifically, the 2016 election cycle, numerous Florida counties and counties across every state in the nation were under attack from Russia. It's public information now that there were 2 successful attempts made in 2016 in Florida counties, and also that they made many other attempts in other counties in Florida, and as I said, in Florida and nationwide. Now, the FBI has not publicly disclosed the names of the successfully attacked counties. I think that's wrong. I want you all to know what they are. I have been made aware of this information. I want you all to be made aware of this information, but I cannot breach that trust that it comes with a security clearance and disclosing classified information. So it's not acceptable to me that we're not permitted to inform voters, constituents, each and every one of you about this. You deserve that transparency, that accountability. It's why I am calling on the FBI, myself, and I would dare say every member of the Florida delegation that I heard speaking was, on any side of the aisle, doesn't matter. We're calling on these intelligence agencies to declassify that information. What do we have to do to get that declassified? Because everybody wants that information out there so that the voters in these counties know what happened in 2016 and the steps that have been and are being made to ensure that this does not happen again. Now, the good news, if you can take good news out of this, is that the FBI, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, they have confirmed that while the hackers were able to go out there and successfully attack several counties, they were not able to alter any vote tallies, were not able to alter any voter information. That is important to reiterate. We were under attack, but the attack was not successful in altering any vote tallies, in altering any voter information. But when we know we're under attack, we need to make sure that we can't be attacked in the same way. That's why it's not good enough that there's not public disclosure. We need that disclosure. So I'm going to continue working with all of the colleagues in the House to urge a strong, transparent response from all of those agencies that are aware and have been looking into everything related to these cyber attacks. So, talk about some other things in the news. This week, as always, making progress for our waterways, introduce bills, on our waterways. Before I get to that, I want to talk to something, that's also very personal to me, just like our waterways, very personal to me. What's going on with anti-Semitism in Congress? It's very disturbing. We put up a video earlier this week of a press conference where I was with some of the other members of the delegation speaking about anti-Semitism and the BDS movement that goes on out there. And I saw some comments of people asking, why are you working on this? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you working on other things? Well, I think it's a good opportunity to remind folks of the committees that I sit on and the work that I do here in Washington. So yes, I sit on the Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure, subcommittees of Water Resources and Environment, Coast Guard and Maritime, Aviation. This is where I do all that work on our waterways, the Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure. I also sit on the Committee of Foreign Affairs. It's been one of the committees that I've been on since the moment that I entered Congress. And on the Committee of Foreign Affairs, I'm constantly working on issues related to the Middle East, North Africa, issues of terrorism, issues of counter-nuclear proliferation, things having to do with sanctions, authorized use of military force, trade, China. Everything related to those issues are the things that we work on the Committee of Foreign Affairs. So when it comes to a movement to say boycott, divest, sanction as a nation from Israel, and the goal of the BDS movement is to say that Israel is an illegitimate state, that absolutely plays into the work of what goes on the Committee of Foreign Affairs. So number one, it's the right thing to do, but number two, this is the work that I am specifically tasked with working on, given the committees that I sit on. Now, some of you may have heard that one of my Democrat colleagues in the House, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, she tried to rewrite history to make her Palestinian ancestors heroes of the Holocaust, and said that the Holocaust gave her a calming feeling. Now, anybody that has been to Yad Vashem in Israel or our Holocaust Museum, here in the United States, anybody that's read any of this history, they know that there's absolutely nothing calming about the Holocaust. This is the kind of revisionist hatred history that has no place in Congress or anywhere else in the United States, period. People are, by all means, they're allowed to go out there and, in this amazing free nation that we have, believe what they want. That's what individuals are allowed to do. But as members of Congress, it's important that we represent the facts. And the fact is that Israel is constantly under attack. People are being stabbed. People are being run over by vehicles. There are homes and vehicles and buses and buildings being bombed constantly, year after year, under barrage of rocket attack. That shouldn't go over lightly. Barrage of rocket attack, where hundreds or thousands of rockets are being launched into the sovereign nation of Israel and meant to kill people. I mean, it's hard for us to imagine here in the United States if we were under a barrage of rocket attack. I can imagine that because I've been in places where we've been under mortar attack, where there have been, rockets flying overhead, attacking, other entities. I know what that's like very, very well. It's hard for us to imagine that going on here in the United States of America. That is the reality of in Israel. It's sad that there's this new group of anti-Israel members of Congress, and I would say, in addition to saying that they're extremely anti-Semitic things, that they're supporting this BDS movement. It's sad to see that. I do believe that the BDS movement is centered around anti-Semitism. Now, in case you're not familiar with it, the goal of the BDS campaign is specifically to delegitimize and ultimately destroy Israel. So it's something, as I said, it's personal to me. A lot of folks know that I spent time serving in Israel, very close to my heart. Now, these new members, people like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, they're trying to make anti-Semitism something that's mainstream, something that's acceptable here in the United States. I don't stand for that. They're purposefully inflaming tensions with the goal of isolating, tearing down anybody who supports freedom, human rights, stability in the Middle East. There's nothing that is acceptable about this kind of bigotry and this kind of hatred, and I will continue to stand against it. Now, speak about a couple of other things. The Senate has already passed a bipartisan rebuke of this kind of hatred. It's been blocked in the House of Representatives by Speaker Pelosi. She's playing politics with this, protecting that far left radical wing, those folks that we just spoke about. So this week I filed something known as a discharge petition. And what this does is it tries to make sure that this very bipartisan bill gets a chance to be voted on in the floor of the House of Representatives. This discharge petition, it says that if 218 members of Congress sign it, in other words, then if half of the members of the House sign that petition, then that bill has to come to the floor of the House of Representatives. The American people, they deserve to know whether their elected representatives have the courage to stand up against this extreme anti-Israel movement. It is time to stop playing these political games, stand united against this hatred in support of our most trusted ally, and that's why getting this vote and getting this bill to the floor is so important. Now, on to great news of the week. Earlier this week, and when I say great news, this is incredible news. President Trump sent a revised budget request to Congress asking for $200 million for Everglades restoration projects. This is something that I talked with him about very specifically when we were at Lake Okeechobee together, when he came and visited, everything going on around the lake there in South Bend, how important it is to get the funding that we need to build projects like the Southern Storage Reservoir that are going to cut down on discharges to the coast, to prevent harmful algal blooms, to restore the southern flow of water. This was great that the president heard our request. It wasn't just my request. Our senators were out there making this request, other members of the House of Representatives and the Florida delegation making this request. But every single time that I had the opportunity to speak to the president, I was voicing this as a concern. This is a massive step in the right direction. There's no time to waste. Our communities are suffering and the Everglades are dying, but together with the support of President Trump, I'm confident that we can finally get this done, send that water south, keep that water from going out into our coastal estuaries. We're pushing to get members of Congress on the Appropriations Committee to make sure that this money is included in the bill that is moving through Congress as we speak. It's critical, and it's the number one thing that I have worked on this week. Now, finally, I want to give you a quick update on 3 other bills that we worked on this week. First, for more than 40 years, tens of thousands of veterans have suffered serious health consequences of being exposed to Agent Orange. This is not new news. All while being denied benefits that they earned during their service during the war in Vietnam. This is unacceptable for all of those men and women who put on a uniform in defense of this country. So this week, in the House, we passed some important legislation known as the Blue Water Navy Vietnam Veterans Act. And what that is to correct a serious injustice. It's been a hard-fought battle to get this done, but we want to thank a lot of bipartisan supporters that helped us to get this bill over the finish line to expand veterans' access to disability and health benefits that they've earned, those who have been exposed to Agent Orange, those Blue Water Navy members who have been exposed to Agent Orange. Another part of our fight for veterans, mental health, the physical toll that serving this country takes on individuals while they're in the military. It's a unique experience, unlike anything else, so it has unique and far-reaching ramifications, unlike anything else. And that's why we need to improve specialized care for veterans. So this week, I helped introduce a bipartisan bill called the SERVE Act of 2019. It's a bill designed to expand veterans' access to treatment facilities, improve the way that we take care of our service members. Together, when we pass bills like this, we ensure that every single service member and their family has access to the best mental and physical care that our country can possibly offer. And that's the goal when I'm working with our Department of Veterans Affairs to make sure that that's what our veterans get. Now, finally, I also reintroduced one other piece of legislation that I've been working on since my time in Congress here, and this is called the Maritime Industries Relief Act. And this is important for our area specifically. There are more than 41,000 recreational boats owned by the 18th District of Florida residents. Now, the marine manufacturing industry in the 18th District, it supports about 3,000 jobs, more than 400 local businesses, local economic impact of the industry is over $600 million. So this bill, what it does for that industry, that big part of our community, is it repeals a duty payment, basically a tax, that's imposed on pre-owned foreign flagged boats, foreign flagged vessels that are offered for sale to U.S. residents while they're in U.S. waters. This includes motorboats, sailboats, canoes, rowboats, large yachts. Now, the repeal of this duty of payment, this tax, it makes it more affordable to bring boats into the United States for sale, which then rely on all of those service industries in and around our waters for support, support in U.S. ports, support by our companies, all these people that are working in that service industry in this area. Now, the current tax structure, it disadvantages U.S.-based marine businesses by making it more likely that these boats go to foreign ports to be repaired, to get themselves up to the standard that they need to be put up to in order for sale, instead of coming into our ports, paying fees to be docked on our dock, using our labor, our workers around here that are working on their engines, working on the hulls, painting the hulls or working on the interiors, all that work that has to get done on these vessels. A lot of those boats, they stay offshore in places like the Bahamas instead of coming over here where they know they want to sell their vessel to individuals, but they get all the work done in other places, and we miss out on a lot in our district. This is an example of a win-win for consumers and local businesses, very widely supported. So on that note, I just want to say, as I end every week speak with. We're working on all of these things. It's an honor to work for you up here in Congress each and every week. I hope that you all have a great week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all around. I wish you the best.